Whenever there's an emergency, homeschooling has the upper hand because we don't need buildings or a staff in order to enjoy organic learning. Hi there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com. I'm the mom of 15. Believe it or not, I've been homeschooling for over 3 decades, and I want to share something with you today that will add to your life. So if you can find something to do while I just talk on, that would be great while we dive into the good life in Jesus. Emergencies happen. They happen to all of us. This is life on planet Earth. There's just stuff that goes wrong. Sometimes it's a fire. Sometimes it's just a family emergency, a death or an accident, or maybe a tree falling on your house. Recently, it's been a couple of hurricanes that hit our country, and some were just devastated. Some areas, the whole roads, like roads turned into rivers, right? Our son-in-law and our daughters, they have been involved in some of the relief efforts in West North Carolina. And they've been getting firsthand information about what's been happening there. And for all of you that are in that situation, whether it's in Florida or any of the other states affected, especially Western North Carolina, our prayers and our thoughts are with you at this time. And one of my dear readers in that region actually wrote to me that her community was totally wiped out. The schools are gone, and she is going to get together with the community, and they're going to put together something akin to what I suggest on here. She's calling it Mom Delights Curriculum. Bless her heart. And they're going to go ahead and they're going to create a little community school there. And I hope that's so successful. And then it starts a movement where we can return to the old ways of teaching our children, where it's not just grade by grade by grade to create more peer dependency, but that all ages are together and we're learning true, organic, wonderful learning that enthuses and encourages people. So I thought that was really neat to hear, and I thought you'd like to hear that story. Okay, now emergencies come in different forms, and I already talked about that. So I have to go by my notes, but I always deviate from my notes. It's all right. You understand. Okay, sometimes they have to deal with illness or death in the family, and we talked about that. How long an emergency lasts, okay, is an important consideration, right? Now, an interruption that lasts from 1 week to 3 months should not cause significant slipping for children. 3 months is like maybe pushing it, but if you're talking about basic academics, we can all forget stuff, especially if it's just newly introduced. It's easy to forget it, right? So after about 3 months, most of it is forgotten for younger children. So 3 months is really pushing it, but from 1 week to a couple months, maybe your kids won't lose as much. But I think that you can make that up really fast if you're homeschooling. Okay, now how can I say this? Because we have over exaggerated the time it takes to give children a solid education. 12 years is actually quite excessive to give the basics to children. Most countries that score well on all these different tests, they don't slave their kids in a classroom for as many years and as many hours as we do. We're kind of inefficient with our education in America. Now, John Taylor Gatto, now he was New York City Teacher of the Year and New York State Teacher of the Year a while back, and he's been very influential in the homeschool movement, and he's written books, and you can find them for free online. You can just read them for free. One is the Underground History of American Education, and you can also check out from your library or buy it online. It's called The Dumbing Us Down is what it's called. One of his books is really, really good read, okay? He says that, he's passed, but he has said that it takes only 50 contact hours to give a child the foundation he will need to learn everything else in his life. Only 50 contact hours. Now, that doesn't mean 50 hours, that's all he has to study is 50 hours. That means 50 hours with an instructor. Now, that is best with a one-on-one type of situation where there's tutoring going on, but 50 hours, okay? There are studies of young people without formal schooling who begin their formal schooling at 12 and graduate by the time they're 16. So just Just let that squirrel around there in a little bit. Just think through that. Okay. A short interruption in formal education. Now we're talking about with textbooks and learning all the different math function, etc., is not a problem. However, especially with children, learning never stops. So while it's impossible, we're in a situation where we can't do book work, right? Life work continues. Okay. Learning how to do helpful things, listening to stories told by older people, finding out how to channel energy in a positive, constructive direction. All these things are important. So in any emergency situation, a child is still learning things. They're watching us. They're seeing how we're dealing with an emergency situation. Like in the face of losing everything and having to either live on a cot or on someone's floor, they're watching us. They're watching how we're handling so much stress. And we need to learn how to help them through that. That's part of homeschooling too. What if you did lose everything? What could you do? Well, when everything has been stripped, children feel really insecure, like we do. I mean, as adults we feel insecure, but children especially, because everything is new to them. They haven't established a comfortability with how life works yet. So the littlest interruption can, like a little 4 or 5-year-old, my granddaughter, her parents moved into a really beautiful house, but all the moving stuff, it just really caused her to become more whiny and more needing attention, and she was doing naughty things, and that's because everything's different. She doesn't know how to deal with it, right? So in the situation like this, homeschooling is not just an option, it is a necessity. Why do I say that? Because children in such circumstances need to know that everything is going to be okay, right? They know things are going to go on as before and everybody's going to be all right. Now, that means that we need to include them in some of the struggles so they know it's okay. So we might share our feelings, like, I'm so sad that we don't have anything right now, and I'm so sad we're in this situation. But you know what? I have great hope that things can only get better from here. And then reassuring them, but letting them know it's okay to be a little stressed, it's okay to be a little sad, but we have hope. You know, that's what we get in the Psalms. God doesn't expect us to be like automatons. No, everything's happy, everything's joyful, everything's wonderful. Oh, I just got my leg chopped off, but I'm so happy and everything. No, okay, so you know, because King David himself, at one point when he was living in Ziklag, and the Philistines carried all of his, was it the Philistines? Anyway, somebody carried all his family off, right? What did he do? He lifted up his voice and he cried till he couldn't cry anymore. That's King David. And then what did it say? After he had cried to where he could cry no more, then he encouraged himself in the Lord. Yeah, so it's okay to be real, but we should not stay there, because we have hope. We have hope in this world. In this world and in the world to come, both. We are really got a lot to live for. Okay, then keeping a daily routine, creating some kind of routine, no matter where you're living. Like I said, if you're on the couch or on the floor in somebody else's house, or if you're on a cot someplace, try to create some sort of rhythm to every day so your kids feel like, okay, something's in control of my life, right? So you might wake up at a certain time. Maybe you wake up and you all pray together. Simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just pray together, and then maybe you read a Bible verse. It doesn't have to be long or anything. Maybe you do some stretches together, right? And then maybe you do whatever personal hygiene you're able to do in that situation, and you get some breakfast, and you say, after breakfast, we're going to start our studies. And the kids are going, excuse me, we have no books and we have nothing. What kind of studies are we going to do? And they might even moan a little bit, but you know what? They're going to be really thankful that something is happening that they can be part of. Okay. Another thing that's important to do is think of creative ways to handle childhood energy, because even though you might be in a cramped place, or you may be in a place where you have nothing, those kids have energy still. So we need to be creative. You know, having them help around makes them feel better. They feel part of things. They feel like they're doing something. Washing some dishes, sweeping some floors, taking out the trash, helping people carry things around, running little errands like messages to other people. All these things build in children like I'm part of the solution. Instead of sticking them over there, like finding something to watch. I mean, I don't know, maybe in an emergency situation, you don't have anything for them to watch. Maybe this is the first time a lot of kids have become unplugged, right? And so they absolutely do not know what to do with their minds or their time. So you've got to teach them how to do this. All right. Now, physical games are really important. The things that I'm thinking about, like the duck, duck, goose kind of things. If you get together with other kids and do like relay races back and forth, or the kind where you have to do like different, like hop on one foot back there and back and stuff like that. Okay, and Simon says freeze tag, hide and seek, all the basic simple things, but that keep kids using their energy up so that they feel a little winded, a little tired. They'll sleep better at night. They'll function better if they have this outlet. Okay, and then there are mental games that you can play when you don't have anything. Okay, like those memory games, like I'm going on a trip to Atlanta, and with me I'm going to take my backpack. And the person has to remember and Jill's going to take a backpack, and I'm going to take a hammer. And you go around the circle, and everybody has to remember. Those are great games like that. You can play telephone where you whisper to someone and they go around, and those are hilarious games. You can do sentence stories, which you could argue this is really great for a lot of things, right? So each person starts this. There was a man, and then the person next to them has to do another sentence for the story and just find out what crazy ways it can go. Then you have to teach them that, no, that's not a sentence, that's art. You're going to have to teach the younger kids that. The older kids, maybe they can get all flamboyant and use some $10 words in there, whatever. Then charades is another thing. You can do it with really good books or movies or what have you. Then there's this game called Buzz. And Buzz is a game we found in an old book that had activities for girls, like an old book with activities for girls when they don't have anything to do, like little hobbies and suggestions. And one of them was Buzz. And Buzz has been around a long time, and it's a really fun game. And I looked on the internet. It's all over the internet for people who do math. Okay, so it's a great way for children to practice their number families. Okay, like multiplication tables, but in a different way. So what you do is you'll say, okay, we're going to do multiples of 3. And everyone around the circle, around the table, starts counting. 1, 2, but when they come to 3, they say Buzz. 1, 2, Buzz. When they come to 4, 5, 6 is Buzz. So whatever multiple of 3, they have to say Buzz. Now, if they don't say if they say the multiple of 3 instead of saying Buzz, then they get the possibility of 3 things happen to them. So the person next to him stands, or the person that lost the last time, stands behind this person and shows the audience, okay, you can have, now this is how we played, okay? It might cause some problems in some situations, but it worked in our family. So you can either have a pinch, a pinch, a hug, or a kiss. So, and it was 1, 2, or 3, but the person behind the person would show the audience which one was which. So 1 is going to be a pinch, 2 is going to be a hug, and 3 is going to be a kiss. So they showed him that, or they could switch it around. So you ask the poor person that last to say, so what do you want, 1, 2, or 3? Now if they picked 3 and it was a pinch, they got pinched, you see, like that. So anyway, it's hilarious. It turns out hilarious, and everybody has a great time. But anyway, that's one of the games you can play. Now you can change the punishments. Some people in a mixed company, you might not want to be pinching people. You might not want to be kissing people. Ooh, okay. So then there are also, you can have story times without books. Okay. Now either you and your spouse, or the people in the house you're living, or the shelter, or wherever you're at, there's some people there that have stories to tell. And you got to make sure they're good stories. But people have stories to tell, and kids need to hear from older people. Hearing a story about someone who overcame something, an experience, or describing a neat experience in their lives, it gives them hope, it gives them something to look forward to, and you can really help the other people in your group, in your area, say, I've got a group of kids here, we're trying to do some schooling, and we're wondering if you'll share your experiences out in the wilderness when you did so and so, or when you were in the army and you help these people in an emergency situation, or I don't know what it would be, but you can call on the older people, or if you remember a time when this community had a hard time and how we dug out of it, or something like that, or the time you went to London or something like that. Just have them describe it and have the kids ask questions. There is so much learning in that. And you can tell your own stories to your kids. Tell them about when you were a kid. Tell them about their grandparents. Tell them about all kinds of stuff, hard times you came through and it turned out good. Talk about the Lord, how you came to the Lord. Tell them all these stories. Just having a story time, a designated story time in your learning. Like in the morning, well, we're going to have some learning time. And one of them is we're going to tell stories and have them tell stories to you of things that are important to them. There's so much that you can accomplish that way. Okay, then you can take the Bible. Hopefully you have a Bible, right? And you read to them from the Word, or you can do a memory verse every day. You can sing any hymns that you can remember together, or praise choruses, or whatever. You just have a little singing time together. That's always fun. And you can do it a cappella. Who cares if you're right on tune or whatever? You're just having fun together, right? Okay. Now, when more supplies are available, go for books, pencil, and paper. That's what this one lady who's in her community, that's what she's going for. Just paper and pencil and read aloud. She says that's how they're going to start. And maybe that's all you have at your disposal at first. Also, some dice and some cards, some playing cards. Those are pretty universal. You can usually find those someplace, right? So then you would take that read aloud. You would read aloud to the children. Oh, it would also be nice, by the way, to have something to write on so that people could see it. Like if you have access to a chalkboard and chalk, that's wonderful. Or a wipe-off board and some markers, that's amazing. If you don't have those two things, then if you got a strip of sidewalk and a piece of limestone, you can write on there. Or if you have some dirt, you can smooth it out and use a stick. Whatever is in front of you, right? So then as you're doing this read aloud, pick a sentence and write that sentence out. And then talk about spelling, punctuation and spelling and the grammar in that sentence. And then have all the kids copy that sentence on their little piece of paper or whatever. Maybe they can only copy a few words, fine, whatever. The older kids can copy a whole sentence out. And then you can do a dictation, and because they've already gone over all the spelling, the grammar and everything, so they should know it really well, and then they're going to dictate it, and that will stick in their minds. And you can do that over and over. Just repeat that every day. It doesn't take that long. You can read to them these stories, and then you can have them repeat back to you, like oral narration, just like Charlotte Mason suggested, right? The older kids can write out a narration on their piece of paper, and there you've got language arts all wrapped up. And if you read from historical novels, then you're doing history and you're doing some geography. If you can find a map or whatever, you're doing some history and geography. Then what you can do is for math, then in that situation, remember you don't have books, you just have paper and pencil, maybe some read alouds. What you can do, take those dice and do all kinds of math games, practice addition, subtraction, do multiplication. You can do the multiples with playing cards, like slapjack, only do it with multiples of 3 or multiples of 5 or whatever you have to do. And then just go through that, and then you'll have some math games, and they'll just stimulate their math sense, and keep them abreast at least of their basic facts. And then you can also, if you can find a textbook for math, like a 6th grade textbook is the best. It has usually all the basic math functions and everything. Then you can actually write down problems and have each level copy the problems at their level, of kids, right? So if you have someone that's just learning basic math and counting, well, we're going to do it at your level. Write these 3 numbers. Okay, then the next one you're going to do like some basic addition problems, maybe some subtraction, and then you're going to do like complex multiplication and division as you go up in age, and you're going to do some percentages. You can do all that kind of stuff. Usually a 6th grade math book or an 8th grade math book especially will have a little bit of everything in there, and you can just use those problems. If you don't want to make them up in your own head, you can just put those, and they can copy those in their notes on their little paper, and they can solve them, and that'll just keep them at an even keel. You might not be challenging them to go forward in their math, but at least they're not going to slip too far back. Right? And you might be surprised how much you can do just with that method. There was a time when my husband and I, we lived in a house with 9 children that was less than 1,000 square feet. And in the dining room, we put up a chalkboard and we used an old textbook. And that's how we taught our kids math. And they did really well. Okay, we just took an old textbook and we would put the problems on the board and we would explain how to do them. And that's how they did their math every day. Can you believe it? For science, this could be a major thing you could do. If you're going through some sort of a catastrophe, like a fire or a hurricane or a flood, there's probably some officials around that are dealing with the whole thing, and sometimes there's some lag time. You could have them come and talk to your kids, or go up to them and just ask them some questions about fires or about, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes they're a wealth of information. That's science, right? Just learning all about how, like a fire creates its own atmosphere, like its own weather. Did you know that? And in a flood situation, you want to talk about all the different hazards and all the different things that happen in a flood and all kinds of stuff. When you're talking about a hurricane, there's just so much you can learn just from the people around you. If you don't have any science textbooks, and you can learn all kinds of stuff. And your kids can actually do experiments off of that. They can do all kinds of fun things. So I think that's one of the major things you can do for science in that situation. Now, you might want to, with these, if you're doing with a group of kids, if you're with your own kids or with a group of kids, it works especially well if you have a lot of families that they don't know what to do with their kids, and you kind of take it on yourself. You don't have to do all the work. You can assign people different things, and it will help them too, right? You can just say, oh, listen, I'll handle the kids. You just come in and tell a story, or you just come in and if you'll just lead us in a prayer, or if you'll just do this or that or the other thing, just give them something to do. It helps everyone to have something to do rather than sitting around waiting for things to happen. And you know what? You might find that you're going to build a lot of relationships, and a lot of parents are going to look at homeschooling differently, I think, if you do this. Now, not everybody's meant to do this, but if you can, step out in faith and trust God. Maybe you can help other people this way. Okay. Now, I would have something to begin a session with these kids and something to end it. It's kind of important. It kind of helps with that security thing. So when you're beginning, you might start with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. When you end, you might end with a prayer and a song, like some sort of song that kids like, like, I don't know what it is. I've been working on the railroad. I don't know. Some folk song or something. Okay, as things become more normal, and that's in quotes, right? You can build back more sequential materials, that follow a pattern that you can, get your textbooks and all that kind of stuff. Now, since you're having to start over with some really good stuff that's solid. Now that you've been through a situation where you know what it's like to be stripped of everything and you can still function, then you realize I don't really need all the fluff that I thought I needed. I just really need some really strong, solid basics. My suggestion is the McGuffey readers and all the stuff that I have. And you can look on my website, momdelights.com. You can watch videos here about them. They cover pretty much everything that you'll need for language arts. Maybe some people need a little bit of spelling, and you might add some grammar in. And you might have to teach them how to write essays and stuff. But that's not a lot, okay? If you have the solidity of the McGuffey readers, that stuff is kind of like gravy on top, okay? But, and then some really solid math. Ray's Arithmetics is terrific. I've also suggested Wentworth's and I forget the other one, Hamilton's. And so those are some old stuff you can get for free online. And you might want to get a good printer. If you're like starting all over again and you don't have anything anyway, why not just get a really good printer and something that prints things cheaply? Like printers, I have an older HP, an 8710 or something like that, and I can get ink like crazy for really cheap for that thing. And so I mean it's really, I don't even think it's a penny a page something out. You can get a box of paper, right? And you can just start printing things out and using them. And old books, you can get old books online, and all it costs is for you to print it out, right? So it's not, when you start having electricity and you have to invest in some homeschool stuff. I know when you're starting from scratch, you have to get a couch and you have to get a bed and you have to get some pots and pans, of course. So you can keep on with the other stuff for a while, But when you can invest in the best things that will give you the biggest return on investment, that ROI thing that business people like to talk about. You need something that's really great ROI, return on investment. And a good printer is one of those things. It'll save you money in the long run. Okay. Now, I offer a guide all about how to choose some of these materials, and it's free and it's on my website. I will try to remember, I don't always remember, I'm sorry, but I'll try to remember to link to this specific post on my website where I introduce that. And I'll try to also put the YouTube video where I talk about a free guide you can get, and it'll explain, basically how to homeschool in this kind of organic kind of a way, and yet with some form and some function. Okay. And form and function, that's like design terms. I don't know if this applies. I don't think I used that right. That's all right. So anyway, so it'll kind of explain how to go about things. I'm gonna give you some suggestions and some things. It's not in concrete. You can go outside those. There's no lines to it. It's just suggestions. So take it as a suggestion, not a rule. All right. So anyway, you can do that. And if you continue in this way with your kids, then you are going to have, because they will have watched you go through this situation and seen how they can learn in every situation, physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. They can not only come through to the other side okay, but they can actually thrive on the other side, and that there's hope. So I hope this blesses you today. And guess what? I already submitted that book. That's Commonplace book number 2 has been submitted to Amazon. It's just being approved. And probably my next video will probably be, I'll announce that it's for free on my website. So you can take advantage of that. And that's going to be for like upper elementary students. And so I hope you like it. Yes, I'm so excited. Have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Bye-bye.